The shadow of Saturn. The Terran defense grid died at 0600 hours. Admiral Kalen Rhodes watched from the bridge of the TDF Resolute as the last orbital platform erupted into a flower of white-hot debris. 43 seconds of sustained fire from the Imperial dreadnought Seveth's glory. That was all it took to erase humanity's outermost shield. Admiral, enemy fleet count now at 4,200 vessels, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice admirably steady despite the crimson emergency lighting bathing the bridge. They're forming a siege sphere around Earth. We have maybe 6 hours before they're in bombardment range. 6 hours. Rhodes gripped the tactical rail, knuckles whitening. Humanity's last stand measured in the time it took to watch a few movies. The Galactic Empire had been methodical. He'd give them that. 3 months ago, they had arrived with diplomatic smiles and trade agreements, promising humanity a place among the civilized species. 2 months ago, they'd mapped every human colony, military installation, and resource depot under the guise of cultural exchange. 1 month ago, their ambassador had transmitted a simple message: submit or perish. Humanity's answer had been predictable, defiant. The Empire's response had been devastation. Mars colony. Glassed. The asteroid belt mining operations vaporized. Luna Base, a crater that would be visible from Earth for the next 1,000 years. And now the Imperial Armada hung in high orbit like a dark constellation, weapons primed to deliver extinction. Sir, Chen continued, Fleet Command is requesting your status. Rhodes almost laughed. Status? They were 18 Terran destroyers against an armada that had crushed civilization spanning 100 star systems. Their status was fucked. Tell command we'll hold position and... He stopped. On the tactical display, a new contact had appeared. A single blip emerging from Saturn's rings. Chen, what am I looking at? The lieutenant's fingers danced across her console. Unknown contact, sir. Transponder is... It's broadcasting a Terran ID, but it's not in any registry. Designation USS Blackstar. She paused, face paling. Admiral, it's putting out a Hawking radiation signature. The bridge went silent. That's impossible, Commander Okafor breathed from the weapons station. The gravitational containment protocols alone would require... They actually built it. Rhodes felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. And terror in equal measure. They actually built it. Dr. Aisha Navarro's theoretical paper had been published 7 years ago, right before the Quantum Prohibition Accords banned research into singularity manipulation. The physics community had called it brilliant. The military had called it insane. The politicians had called it too dangerous to exist. Apparently someone hadn't been listening. The Blackstar was unlike any human vessel Rhodes had ever seen. Where Terran ships were angular and utilitarian, this was a study in dark elegance. A blade of midnight metal nearly 2 kilometers long, its surface seeming to drink in the light of distant stars. No visible weapons ports, no conventional engines, just that impossible, terrible presence. And at its heart, if the readings were correct, a controlled singularity, a black hole, caged and weaponized, Admiral Rhodes. The voice that crackled over the comms was female, calm, carrying the weight of someone who'd already made peace with the impossible. This is Dr. Aisha Navarro, captain of the USS Blackstar. Permission to join the battle line, Rhodes found his voice. Dr. Navarro, this is Rhodes. We weren't informed of your existence. Does Fleet Command know about you? A pause. Fleet Command doesn't officially exist anymore, Admiral. Their headquarters was hit 40 minutes ago. Her tone softened slightly. We've been dark for 6 years. Black budget program. Need-to-know classification about 3 levels above top secret. But I figure when you're facing extinction, clearance becomes somewhat moot. What are your capabilities? We bend space, Admiral. We make gravity our weapon. And we're about to teach the Empire why humanity doesn't do impossible. On the tactical display, the Blackstar began to move, accelerating toward the Imperial fleet with a speed that made Rhodes's stomach lurch. No conventional drive could produce that kind of velocity. It wasn't thrust, the ship was falling forward, warping space itself. All ships, this is Rhodes. He pulled up the fleet-wide channel, watching his ragtag force of destroyers form up. We've got a new player on the field. I don't know what the hell that ship can do, but we're going to support it. Chen, hail the Empire flagship, sir. Do it. The face that appeared on screen was angular and cruel, skin the color of brushed copper, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern.
High Archon Veskith,
Commander of the Imperial Expeditionary Force, the architect of humanity's near extinction, Admiral Rhodes. Veskith's translator rendered his words with perfect, mocking clarity. Have you reconsidered your species' foolish defiance? Surrender, and perhaps we will allow some of you to survive as laborers. Rhodes smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Archon, I just wanted you to know. When you run, and you will run, humanity will remember that you came to our home seeking our destruction, and will remember that we sent you back broken. Veskith's face twisted in what might have been laughter. You have 18 primitive warships against my armada. Your bravado is— He stopped. One of his bridge officers was speaking urgently, pointing at something off-screen. What is that? The Blackstar had reached weapons range. Space bent. Rhodes watched in awe as reality itself seemed to twist around the black vessel. The leading edge of the Imperial formation, a battle group of 300 ships suddenly lurched inward, drawn toward an invisible point. Metal screamed across the void. Shields flared and died. And then, with terrible grace, the ships began to compress. Mother of God, Okafor whispered. The Singularity's event horizon was less than a meter across, but its gravitational influence extended for thousands of kilometers. The Blackstar wasn't firing conventional weapons. It was using its drive core as a tidal weapon, generating localized gravitational anomalies that no shield could block, no armor could resist. 300 Imperial warships crumpled like paper in a fist. Metal and crew compressed into an ever-shrinking sphere before vanishing past the black hole's point of no return. Gone. Not destroyed. Erased. The rest of the armada scattered in panic. All ships, Rhodes ordered, his voice carrying across every human vessel in the system. Attack pattern Delta. The Blackstar opened the door. Let's kick it the hell down. As his destroyers surged forward, weapons blazing into the chaos, Rhodes allowed himself a grim smile. The Empire had come to Earth expecting to crush primitives. Instead, they'd found something far more dangerous. Humans who'd looked at the impossible and said, not good enough. And in the shadow of Saturn, the USS Blackstar bent space and broke an empire. The weight of infinity, 6 years. Earlier, Titan Research Station. You can't be serious. Dr. Aisha Navarro looked up from her calculations to find Admiral Elena Kurtz standing in the doorway of her lab, face carved from granite in disbelief. The math works, Aisha said simply, gesturing to the holographic equations suspended in the air around her. A controlled micro-singularity, magnetically contained, fed a precise diet of matter-antimatter reactions. We can keep it stable indefinitely. And more importantly, she pulled up a simulation. We can aim it. Kurtz stepped closer, her career military bearing at odds with the academic chaos of Aisha's workspace. Doctor, the quantum prohibition accords exist for a reason. Singularity research killed 40,000 people on Europa Station. The entire moon is still a dead zone. That was an uncontrolled cascade. They were idiots who rushed the containment protocols. Aisha's voice hardened. I'm not an idiot, Admiral. And I didn't spend 7 years working on theoretical physics just to have politicians tell me what's possible. The galaxy has rules. The galaxy has chains. Aisha turned to face her fully. The Empire controls faster-than-light technology. They regulate which species get access to advanced weapons. They decide who's civilized enough to join their little club. And you want to know what I think? I think they're terrified of what we might build if we stop asking permission. Kurtz was quiet for a long moment, studying the woman before her. Aisha Navarro, 31 years old, 3 PhDs, and a reputation for solving problems others called impossible. Also notably stubborn, frequently insubordinate, and currently proposing something that could either save humanity or destroy it. If I greenlight this, Kurtz said slowly, and you're wrong, you'll have built a weapon that could swallow Earth. If I'm right, Aisha countered, I'll have built the one thing that might keep Earth from getting glassed by the next alien species that decides we're inconvenient. Kurtz pulled up her personal comm, made a call that bypassed every official channel, and spoke 4 words. Begin Project Blackstar. Present day, USS Blackstar. Bridge. The taste of copper filled Aisha's mouth as the Singularity core pulsed again, sending gravitational shockwaves through the Imperial formation. 6 years of theory, 4 years of construction, and 2 years of testing had led to this moment. Her impossible ship, her terrible weapon, finally unleashed, and it was glorious. Core temperature stable at 2.7 Kelvin, reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the engineering station, his voice tight with concentration. Hawking radiation within acceptable parameters. Magnetic containment holding at 99.7%. Captain, the Imperial fleet is attempting to regroup, called out Commander Sarah Chen. No relation to the Chen on Rhodes' ship, Aisha noted absently. Different Chen, same Earth desperation. They're pulling back to formation Epsilon 7. Looks like a shield link configuration. Aisha studied the tactical display, watching 4,000 alien warships attempt to form a defensive sphere, their shields overlapping to create a unified barrier. Standard Empire doctrine when facing overwhelming firepower. Unfortunately for them, the Blackstar didn't deal in conventional firepower. They're trying to spread the damage, she murmured. Cute, Webb, prepare for gravitational lensing. Let's show them why shields don't matter when space itself is the weapon. Aye, Captain. Spinning up the lensing array. The ship hummed, a frequency Aisha felt in her bones. The micro-singularity at the Blackstar's heart, no larger than a marble yet containing the mass of a small moon, began to rotate faster within its magnetic cage. Space-time around the vessel warped, bending light, bending reality itself. Captain Navarro. Admiral Rhodes's voice crackled over the comm. My sensors are showing gravitational distortions extending out to lunar orbit. Please tell me that's intentional. It's intentional, Admiral. You might want to pull your ships back another 10,000 kilometers. This is going to get messy. Messier than erasing 300 ships? Aisha allowed herself a cold smile. Much messier. She touched the command override, feeling the weight of what she was about to do. The Blackstar wasn't just a ship, it was a statement. Humanity, refusing to play by rules written by species who saw them as primitives. Humanity, taking physics itself and twisting it into a weapon. Humanity, becoming the monster necessary to survive monsters. Fire, she commanded. The Imperial flagship, Savath's Glory High Archon Veskith, watched his fleet die and finally understood the meaning of fear. The human vessel had done something his tactical officers insisted was impossible. It had created a gravitational lens, focusing the micro-singularity's tidal forces like light through a magnifying glass. The overlapping shields of his fleet, shields that could withstand antimatter warheads and plasma bombardments, simply ceased to be relevant. Space itself was tearing. Archon, we're detecting spatial fractures forming along the entire perimeter of our formation. His science officer's 4 eyes were wide with panic. The gravitational shear is exceeding structural integrity thresholds. On the view screen, Veskith watched as 100 of his ships simply broke. Not from weapon impacts, there were no explosions, no fire. The vessels just came apart as differential gravitational forces pulled their bow sections one direction, and their stern sections another. Metal screaming in protest before surrendering to physics that shouldn't exist. How? He breathed. They're a level 3 civilization. They shouldn't have this technology for another 1,000 years. His strategic advisor, Old Corthan, spoke in a voice like gravel. Perhaps, Archon, we misjudged what level they truly are. We assumed their technology defined them. We forgot to account for their creativity. Another wave of gravitational force swept through the fleet. Another 70 ships torn apart. All forces full retreat, Veskith ordered, his pride dissolving in the face of survival instinct. Break formation, scatter, maximum acceleration away from the inner system. Archon, that's now! He rounded on his bridge crew. Send a priority transmission to the Empire. Tell them Earth is off limits. Humanity is not to be engaged. Coded as a hegemonic threat, the highest warning level. Reserved for species that could threaten the Empire itself. The human ship, the Blackstar. They'd called it, hung in space like a dark god, and Veskith finally understood. Humanity hadn't just built a weapon. They'd announced themselves as a species that would bend reality rather than bend the knee. USS Blackstar, medical bay 2 hours later. Aisha found Admiral Rhodes waiting for her in the medical bay. The Resolute had taken damage during the battle, but his ships had performed magnificently, exploiting the chaos the Blackstar created to savage the retreating Imperial forces. 4,800 enemy vessels destroyed or disabled, Rhodes said without preamble. 300 escaped into FTL. Your ship did that, Dr. Navarro. Captain Navarro, she corrected gently, wincing as the autodoc finished treating the radiation burns on her arms. Side effect of proximity to a controlled singularity. Even with shielding, some Hawking radiation leaked through. Her medical file said she had maybe 10 more years before the cumulative damage became terminal. And yes, Admiral, my ship did that. Rhodes studied her. This woman who'd built impossibility. You knew the cost, didn't you? When you started this project, I knew that if we didn't have something like the Blackstar, we'd have nothing at all. She met his eyes. The Empire has controlled galactic politics for 3,000 years. They decide who gets advanced technology, who gets protection, who gets to exist. I wasn't about to let them decide humanity's fate. And now they know we're not asking permission anymore. She stood slowly, feeling every year of radiation exposure in her bones. The Empire will go back and tell their overlords that Earth has a weapon that breaks their understanding of warfare. They'll be afraid, and fear. Fear gives us negotiating room. At what price? Rhodes asked quietly. Doctor, Captain, that thing you're carrying in your ship's heart? It's not just a weapon. It's a line we crossed, using a black hole as a gun. That's monstrous, Aisha finished. Yes, it is. But the alternative was extinction, and I decided that survival trumps morality. She paused at the door. You don't have to like what I built, Admiral. You just have to be grateful it exists. Rhodes watched her leave. This brilliant, damaged woman who'd saved humanity by weaponizing the fabric of space itself. Outside the viewport, the Blackstar drifted in silent orbit, a shadow against Saturn's rings. Beautiful, terrible, necessary. And humanity's first true step into a galaxy that suddenly had to acknowledge them not as primitives, but as equals, or perhaps something more frightening, as innovators who refused to accept that anything was impossible. Encrypted transmission, Galactic Empire High Council. The human species has demonstrated hegemonic-level technology. Recommend immediate elevation to protected status and opening of diplomatic channels. Further military action inadvisable. Confirmed. Mark Sol system as restricted space, send ambassadors and send our best scientists. We need to understand how they achieved singularity weaponization. They won't share that technology. Counselor. No. But perhaps we can learn something more valuable, how they learned to dream so dangerously. The price of stars 3 months. After the Battle of Earth, the Galactic Council chamber was a monument to ancient power. A sphere 3 kilometers in diameter, its walls embedded with crystalline viewscreens showing every member world of the Empire. 200 species, 3,000 years of dominion, all represented in this single room, and today, for the first time, humanity stood at its center. Dr. Aisha Navarro walked across the chamber floor, her boots echoing in the vast space. She wore her Terran fleet uniform, captain's insignia gleaming, and behind her floated a holographic representation of Earth, still scarred, still healing but still there. Honored Council, she began, her voice carried by the chamber's acoustics to every delegate. 3 months ago, you sent an armada to my world. You came to subjugate us, to add humanity to your collection of civilized species. You believed we would fall in line like so many before us. High Counselor Vexithera, a being that resembled a crystalline spider, ancient and vast, spoke with a voice like chiming bells. Captain Navarro, we acknowledge that High Archon Veskith exceeded his authority. The expeditionary force acted without full council approval. We have come to offer reparations and to formally invite humanity into the galactic community. You came to conquer us, Aisha corrected, her tone sharp as broken glass. The only reason we're having this conversation is because we built something that scared you. The USS Blackstar didn't earn us respect, it earned us fear. And now you want to negotiate. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Several species that humanity had never seen before shifted uncomfortably in their viewing spheres. Ambassador Marcus Trent, Earth's newly appointed diplomatic representative, stepped forward to join Aisha. The Council's proposal is generous, he said carefully, having spent weeks in preparation for this moment. Full membership, access to hyperlane networks, technology sharing, defensive pacts. On paper, it's everything we could want. And in exchange? Aisha asked, though she already knew the answer. Vexithara's crystalline form chimed with what might have been reluctance. The singularity technology must be placed under galactic restriction protocols. No new vessels of the Blackstar's class may be constructed. The existing vessel must have its singularity core disabled and placed under Joint Earth Council custody. There it was. The price of admission. Disarm the one weapon that made the Empire afraid. Aisha felt the weight of every human eye in the galaxy upon her. Those watching from Earth, from the colonies, from the refugee ships still returning from the scattered remains of Mars. She thought of Admiral Kurtz, who'd believed in her enough to break every rule. She thought of her crew, who'd operated a weapon that was slowly killing them all with ambient radiation. She thought of the 10 years of life she had left, and whether they'd be enough to see humanity truly safe. No, she said simply. The chamber erupted in chaos. USS Blackstar, Captain's Ready Room, Admiral. Rhodes found Aisha staring out at Saturn's rings, a glass of whiskey untouched on her desk. You know the Council will respond, he said, settling into a chair without invitation. The Empire doesn't take no well. Then they'll learn. Aisha didn't turn from the viewport. They want us to give up the Blackstar because it's proof that their monopoly on power is fragile. Every species they've kept under their thumb is watching, wondering if they could build something similar. We're not just a threat to the Empire, we're an idea. An idea that could start a galactic arms race, Rhodes countered. Every species trying to build their own doomsday weapon. Is that really the future you want? No, she finally turned to face him. But the future where humanity exists at the Empire's mercy? Where we're only safe as long as we're disarmed? That's worse. We didn't survive extinction just to become pets. Rhodes sighed, running a hand over his graying hair. I read your medical report. Dr. Ewan says the radiation exposure is accelerating. 5 years now, maybe less. Then I'll make them count. Aisha, don't. Her voice cracked slightly, the first sign of vulnerability Rhodes had seen since the battle. Don't tell me it was worth it, or that I'm a hero, or any of the comfortable lies people tell soldiers who are dying for their cause. I built a weapon that breaks physics and kills its own crew. I crossed every ethical line that matters. And I'd do it again because the alternative was everyone I loved turned to glass. Rhodes stood, moved to the viewport beside her. Together they watched the Blackstar in its permanent orbit, a dark sentinel forever watching over Earth's sky. The crew knows, he said quietly. About the radiation, about how long they have, and they're staying anyway. You didn't force them. They choose this. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. Because it means they believe in what you built, not just the weapon, the future it represents. A future where humanity doesn't ask permission to exist. Titan Research Station. Project Starbreak Lieutenant Marcus Webb had served as chief engineer aboard the Blackstar for 2 years. He'd kept the singularity stable through 17 combat engagements, 6 emergency shutdowns and 1 terrifying incident, where the containment field had dropped to 40% before he'd managed to restore it. He'd also absorbed enough radiation to guarantee he wouldn't see 50, which made him the perfect candidate for Project Starbreak. The principle is similar to the Blackstar, he explained to the assembled team of scientists and engineers, volunteers all, recruited from every human colony. But instead of a weapon, we're building a drive. A controlled singularity that warps space continuously, allowing faster-than-light travel without relying on the Empire's hyperlane network. Dr. Yuki Chen, the third Chen in this story, and yes, the universe had a sense of humor, pulled up the schematic. If we succeed, we won't need the Empire's permission to travel. We can explore independently, establish colonies beyond their jurisdiction, contact other species directly. And if we fail? Asked one of the younger engineers, fresh from Mars reconstruction. Webb smiled grimly. Then we fail trying, which beats dying on our knees. The Blackstar proved we can manipulate singularities. Now we prove we can do more than just fight with them. We can explore. The team looked at each other, physicists and engineers, dreamers and pragmatists, all united by the same stubborn human refusal to accept limits. When do we start? Someone asked. 20 minutes ago, Webb replied. We've got a lot of impossible to accomplish. Galactic Council Emergency Session, 6 months later. They've launched 17 vessels into deep space, reported the Council's intelligence coordinator. A species resembling a floating jellyfish of light. No hyperlane access, no conventional FTL drives. They're using singularity technology to travel independently. High Counselor Vexithera's crystalline form pulsed with colors that suggested alarm. They're proliferating the technology? We specifically demanded they cease development. They refused our terms, Ambassador Corthan reminded the Council. And we chose not to press the issue militarily after the unpleasantness at Earth. This changes the balance of galactic power, another counselor argued. If humanity can travel without our networks, if they can explore and establish colonies outside our oversight, then they become truly independent, Vexithara finished. As do any species they choose to share this technology with. Silence fell across the council chamber as the implications sank in. For 3,000 years, the Empire had maintained control through monopoly, control of FTL travel, control of advanced weapons, control of who was allowed to reach for the stars. And now a single species armed with dangerous creativity and an unwillingness to accept the word impossible had shattered that monopoly. What do we do? Someone asked. Vexthara pulsed thoughtfully. We adapt, we learn, and perhaps we remember why the Empire was founded in the first place. Not to control but to protect, to guide. If humanity can achieve this through their own innovation, what does that say about our practice of restricting technology from younger species? You're suggesting we were wrong? I'm suggesting that the universe has just become more complicated, and that humanity has reminded us of something we'd forgotten. That true advancement comes not from following rules, but from questioning them. USS Blackstar. 1 year after Earth's defense, Aisha stood on the bridge of her impossible ship, watching the latest medical report hover before her eyes. 3 years left now, maybe less. The Singularity's radiation was eating her cells faster than medicine could repair them. Around her, the crew worked with practiced efficiency, a crew she'd handpicked, a crew she was killing by inches with every day the Singularity remained active. They knew. They'd all known from the beginning. And not one had asked to leave. Captain, Commander Chen reported, we're receiving a transmission from the outer colonies. You should see this. The view screen flickered to life, showing a ship unlike anything in the Terran fleet. Sleek, innovative, built using principles the Blackstar had proven possible. And behind it, others. A flotilla of vessels, each bearing the insignia of a different human colony. USS Aurora reporting, came a proud voice. Singularity drive operational. Ready to begin exploration of Sector 447. Captain Navarro, we wanted you to know we're not alone out here anymore. You showed us we could reach for the impossible. Now we're running with it. Aisha felt something tight in her chest loosen. Not redemption. She'd made her choices and would live with the consequences. But perhaps something better. Proof that the sacrifice meant something. That humanity wasn't just surviving but thriving. Exploring. Becoming something new. Acknowledged, Aurora, she replied, surprised to find her voice steady. Godspeed. And remember, the impossible is just the starting line, the Aurora's captain finished. Yes, ma'am. We remember. As the transmission ended, Admiral Rhodes materialized beside her, his hologram flickering slightly. He was calling from Earth Orbital Command. They're naming an award after you, you know. The Navarro Prize for Impossible Engineering. I'm not dead yet, Admiral. No, but you're becoming a legend. The woman who saved Earth by refusing to accept reality's limitations. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Refusing the Council's demands. Keeping the Blackstar active. Teaching us to reach further. Aisha looked at her ship's heart, the singular point of infinite density that gave them power at terrible cost. The Empire thought they could define what we were allowed to become. But humanity doesn't do well with limits. No, Rhodes agreed. We really don't. Outside the viewport, a new ship jumped into view. The TDF Newton, returning from a 6-month exploration mission beyond Empire space. And beyond it, in the distance, the subtle distortions of other ships, other singularities, other impossible dreams made manifest. The galaxy was vast, and it was full of species that had followed the rules, accepted their place, and built their civilizations within the boundaries others had drawn. And then there was humanity, the species that had looked at extinction, built a weapon from captured starlight and forbidden physics, and used it not just to survive, but to announce themselves as something the galaxy had never seen before. Not conquerors, not suppressors, but innovators, dreamers. The people who heard impossible and heard only a challenge. Dr. Aisha Navarro, captain of the USS Blackstar, dying by degrees from the weapon she'd created, watched humanity's ships spread across the stars like seeds of defiant hope, and she smiled because the Empire's fall wasn't inevitable because of the Blackstar's power. It was inevitable because they'd underestimated humanity's greatest weapon, the stubborn, reckless, beautiful refusal to stop reaching for the impossible, especially when it cost everything. Encrypted message, Terran Fleet Archives classification, historical record date, 50 years after the Battle of Earth Captain's Log, USS Blackstar. They tell me this ship will be a museum someday, a relic of the war that defined humanity's place in the galaxy. They're wrong. The Blackstar isn't a relic. It's a promise that will never stop pushing boundaries, never stop questioning, never stop building impossible things and demanding the universe make room for them. The singularity at our heart burns. It will outlast me by billions of years, and long after I'm gone it will remain. A captured star tamed by human will, proof that we looked at the fundamental forces of reality and said, not good enough. The Empire learned to fear us, but more importantly, they learned to respect us, and that respect was earned not by the weapon we built, but by the spirit that built it. To anyone reading this in the future, reach further. Dream bigger. When they tell you something is impossible, smile and build it anyway. That's what it means to be human. That's what the Blackstar represents. Not the end of a war, but the beginning of infinity. Captain Aisha Navarro, signing off. The end.